Hello, folks. There's usually a slow roll-in on Saturday, but our numbers get pretty good. That's what I've noticed. So, we might take a while to actually get into it. Uno momento, por favor. You might see a green screen. In fact, I believe you see a green screen. However, this will not be a green screen for long. You see a green screen? I'm glad you see a green screen. Yeah, so the weird thing I've noticed with Saturday streams is they tend to be one of our highest numbered days, but the roll-in is a lot slower than normal. So I'm going to give it a moment here. I'm going to let people show up. The green screen, it died. There we go. There we go. I've been moved. Okay. We're going to have a time today. I'm going to switch to big face mode. Beautiful. We love to see it. It went quiet. It's saying I have audio. Can people hear me? Am I audible? Am I audible.com? Can you rent audiobooks from me for an insane markup where the actual novelists get no money? Is that what we are now? My wife made me some smashed potatoes and smashed potatoes. Crispy, so it's hard to get. I think it says you, Damador Dimmadome. It's cool that I've fallen in the leftist stream meta of keeping a chat troll as a pet and farming them for content. We'll see. Look, I want the stream to get big enough that we can have lots of people hassling me, and I can't even notice all of them. That's the dream. The dream is for my ADHD to make it impossible for me to actually keep up with all the people hassling me. Here's the thing. No matter what you say in the world, people are going to disagree with you. The authors don't need that money. That's true about Audible. Audible is actually doing a service. The authors would break their backs if they had to carry that money all over the place. And frankly, they're saving them. I had to move some stuff so I had room for my potatoes. Because I was trying to sit like this, and my elbow kept bumping the potato bowl. Bowl plate. It's a bowl and a plate, you know. We'll give it like a little bit longer. Today, I'll just explain the basics. I keep talking about what my ideology is, like, what my way of looking, not even ideology, what my paradigm is for looking at politics, how I engage with it. Let's do the intro. Fuck it. Let's just go. Let's do the intro. Gotta get my script up. It's not a proper script. I just have an outline to make sure I go through points in the right order. I don't want to forget any of the ideas I came up with while planning the stream. Evening, Satoshi Shiba, which sounds like a breed of dog. Playing the feud. Look, you always need feuds. All right. What's up, Internet? It's me, Drawk, of The Drawk Show, where I draw and talk. We're not going to draw a lot today. We're going to talk. Here is a video you can watch if you want to get bad marks in every poli-sci course. I don't like the way that we've decided to talk about politics. I think it's... Let me think about this. Dumb and bad. Why? Well, we'll get into that, but I first want to give a disclaimer. I don't have an education in poli-sci. I didn't take a single class. I have said before, I think my talent, where my intellect is at its best, is listening to lots of people, filtering information, and coming to some sort of through line, seeing the pattern between a lot of people's ideas. It's why I like to discuss in humanities, you know? I like to talk about political science. I like to talk about sociology, anthropology. I like to talk about writing and art and media, because those sorts of softer areas without hard definitions are best served by intuiting patterns and patterns of data. That's where I think my intelligence is at its most useful. Yo, what up, Smile Entity? Okay, that's fair, Amrant. So, I don't have a background in poli-sci. My background, my education, is mostly in writing. I took a bunch of anthropology courses. So what I've come to is mostly from a bit of philosophy, anthropology, and more than anything, from just listening to people and seeing the through line, seeing where I think I say people say things that aren't quite right. Let's talk about the basics of this. I want to start with an idea. Do you think... I bumped the mic. Do you think ideologies mean anything? Do you think when someone says they're a capitalist, they are a fan of capitalism? Do you think when someone says they're a socialist, they will push for socialism? My opinion is almost never do ideologies mean fucking anything. I think ideologies are fucking pointless. I think when you look at some of the scholars early into fascism who were like, yeah, this is why fascism's good, all of the actual fascists that existed that we call fascists didn't follow through on any of the shit that guy said. If you look at how communism played out, are any communist states anything remotely close to what Marx presented and pitched? Fucking no. America barely looks anything like what Adam Smith envisioned for capitalism. Why would ideology mean goddamn anything? I want to start with something. I want to get into why I think. Yeah, ideology is the Platonic ideal. No chair is the Platonic ideal. No leftist is the Platonic ideal of leftist. I disagree. I think all ideologies ever are is retro definition, a post hoc justification, a framework that is used to explain people's behaviors. I'll get into this a bit later, but I want to start with something. Drawk, want to hope me and my mom are doing well. Due to work, you haven't been able to tune into a nice stream since last year around Marineford. Wow, it's been a while. I do politics streams now. We just started this. This isn't like, oh yeah, this is the routine. This is what I do. No, we just started. So let's talk a bit about something. I was told something a long time ago, and I despise it. I tried to look into this, and I couldn't find it. It was a line where someone was quoting a philosopher. I think it was from the Cracked podcast, but because in all my research, I couldn't find anything about this, I can't confirm it. But what I remember is it was someone saying, well, we think of the idea that we're always trying to be more ethical, but what ethics means can be so different and diverse. And I think that's true. I think it is the One Piece of Politics pipeline. Yeah. I think this is my deep belief. That is true. Everybody can say they're acting ethically, but what ethics means, person to person, it's basically a meaningless word because that can be so personal. But the example they gave, and I hate this, was the idea of imagine a culture where their cultural belief, right? The thing they believe in, okay, is that the most ethical thing you can do is build the best, most beautiful, extravagant bird cages, to build the best cages for birds. That is the peak of ethics. And this was meant to be like hey, see, ethical ideology can be anything. So when we talk about everyone trying to be more ethical, it's really limiting to think of it that way. And I think it's such a bad example for a reason that I couldn't figure out for a long time. And I think it's that, like, while there isn't a human nature for what specific ethical ideology is, I think the best bird cages isn't really something that could emerge from humans. So, communism's a good example. Marx is not Che, not Lenin. I mean, I wanna get into the specifics a bit more. So, I'm looking at my notes and I put them in the wrong order, but yeah, let's talk about this, right? So we have this idea that this guy pitched, right? That, okay, ethics are different. Well, I opened the wrong tool. Why are my hotkeys broken? Give me a moment. Give me a second here. Give me a second here. Okay. So this guy pitched like ethics are diverse because imagine a human civilization built around bird cages. The most extravagant bird cages are the peak of ethics. The reason I think this is dumb is pretty simple, right? Human nature doesn't really come to this. There's no point of human nature. There's nothing in our evolution that makes us say, yeah, the most ethical thing you can do is build bird cages. That doesn't make sense to me. But that leads to the question of, like, what is possible? What is our nature? Where do our ideas of ethics come from? So I want to get into why I think this is. But on the way there, I want to talk about how, like, there's no points of conflict in the beauty of a birdcage, not for humans. It's not even about that. It's not even about that. I don't think human ethics need points of conflict. I don't think that is necessary. And I actually think some people's ethics are incredibly conflict averse as a prime factor. So this didn't make sense to me. So let's talk about what happens when ideology does actually exist. Does anyone know about Lyshenkoism? Lyshenkoism is this crazy movement between a lot of Soviet communist allies. So the Soviet Union and China being the most notable ones. Lyshenkoism was this idea of like, our ideology must remain pure, and because of that, the agrarian sciences of the West were shunned, and they turned to Lyshenko. Was Lyshenko the scientist who they used the agrarian theory of? Basically, they could only use what I have no idea how to spell Lyshenkoism. I've only heard of this from like research essays that I've research video essays I've watched, and I don't know how to spell it. But the idea of it was we need to remain ideologically pure in how we execute our farming. And it led to absolutely mass famines. It led to the stupidest fucking famines because they turned away from science and decided, well, ideas that are ideologically pure must be pursued, and their farms fucking collapsed. The fertilizer was worse applied, the way they had crops share spaces was worse, they could harvest less efficiently. So, Lysenkoism, it's spelled like that. I was adding an SH, it's an S. Lysenkoism. Lysenkoism. The long and short of it is, in the pursuit of ideological purity, people who actually tried to believe in ideology, they starved and killed millions of people. Whereas had they just said, hey, it's all right to use the Western industrial agrarian framework for our communist state, that wouldn't have happened. It would be hilarious if it didn't mean countless human deaths. It would be. So yes, ideology shouldn't be everything. It should not be all-consuming. Did you know that the Nazis didn't believe in relativity because they called it Jew science? I'm not joking. If the Nazis had won, their puritanical view on ideology would have led to them never being able to discover more about the cosmos because they weren't allowed to interact with fucking relativity. The foundational concept of how space-time works was outside what Nazis were able to comprehend because it was Jew science, right? That's what ideological purity does to a man. So you want to avoid that. It is okay that ideology is fake. But what do we put in its place? If ideology is fake, if we shouldn't be looking at this like, oh, this is capitalism versus socialism versus communism, how do we look at this? So you might think, well, if ideology is fake, how do we determine ethics? Okay, sorry, I'm going to pause for a sec. You might disagree with that, if only because astronomers were able to math their way around geocentrism. You know, it's possible, but I think if you were lying to yourself about the fundamental nature of reality, you're holding your science back. That's my take. And I think what you could accomplish with a geocentric model would have been limited too. I think you would have launched fucking the rockets wrong at some point in the future. I think that if your fundamental view of reality is skewed by ideology, you will do worse science and at some point it will catch up with you, like with Lysenkoism. Okay. Right. So what is an ethical framework if not an ideology? I think we have to understand ethical frameworks and ideologies are fundamentally different. So ethical frameworks, for people who don't know, are the way that an individual human arrives at what is ethical. For me, I consider myself what I call a soft utilitarian. Utilitarian ethics are, I am trying to avoid suffering and promote positive aspects like freedom for the most number of people. So at some point, I had to decide that suffering was bad and freedom is good. Those are things that are in my ethical framework, and that is how I arrive at ethical conclusions. And I don't think that's fake, because that is really just like a mechanism I use to arrive in everyday life, even outside of larger political structures, what is right and wrong, what is good for people, what is bad for people. Some people are virtue ethicists, and their ethical system is about virtues. It is wrong to lie, so it is always wrong to lie. And that, to me, starts to bunch up against ideology, and I think that leads to more harm, because there are situations where not lying would save someone, and you choose to lie. But the thing is, the reason I stand by ideology is fake is some ethical frameworks don't come across as an ideology, right? I don't think utilitarianism in my regard does. Some people might apply it like an ideology. And I think movies are full of these villains that still, the second you treat this as an ideology, something where it's like absolutely true and should be followed in all your decisions instead of a general framework for judging if something's good and bad, you end up with crazy shit. Like, in theory, Thanos is a utilitarian. He's like, there's too much suffering. If there was half as much life and just as much resource, there would be less suffering because there wouldn't be overpopulation. And that is the idea of like utilitarianism treated as an ideology, which is also, I'll note, why I call myself a soft utilitarian, because I think the big reason utilitarianism is so destructive of a framework in a lot of people's minds is like, people assume they know the outcomes to stuff, and I don't. I try to not like assume. Yo, Mountain Ash Tree, thanks for subscribing. But yeah, I think you do need an ethical framework. I think everybody's got one. I think you all have a way of judging right from wrong. Where does that come from? What does it have anything to do with what we're going to replace ideology with? It does, in fact. Okay. Pause that. Put that on shelf. It might be worth separating principles versus ideology, which principles are outcome focused, ideologies exist to validate themselves. Fabrizio, that's such a smart way to put it. I was looking for a way to put this, and Fabrizio gets a gold star because this is how to put it. I walked myself into a corner and forgot how to say it. So, yeah, if you have principles, like I am principally a utilitarian, I am trying to make decisions that reduce suffering and increase joy and freedom. But if it became an ideology, it would be a validating mechanism, something that I use to go, well, this is okay because of this framework. It would be used retroactively, able to be used retroactively to justify systems. Like you said, it's more a philosophy realm. Would it be wise to separate ideology from philosophy in your view? Philosophy to me, I mean, these definitions get so fucking abstract. Philosophy to me is just any act of like the study of thinking, right? Anytime you are thinking and examining thought as a principle, that's just philosophy. A personal philosophy is just like, that's just a colloquialism, right? That's just a casual term someone uses to describe their outview. I don't think there's a hard definition to what a personal philosophy is. And I think like we become like fucking Pokemon cards covered in stat sheets if we're like, this is my philosophy, this is my ideology, this is my ethical frame. Like that to me, just like, I think they're all synonyms for each other at a point, and we're just cutting edges. But the reason I really want to say ideologies are fake is because I think no matter what your framework is, it should be something that is willing to break and bend. For instance, capitalism as an ideology breaks constantly. Basically, every company can't make goddamn money off of food. However, food needs to exist or we all die. So every government, pretty much, with rare exceptions, are throwing fucking tax money from all of their actual profitable things like cutting down trees or writing code into their food industries, because if they don't, they will fucking die. And the only time people are making money off of food is when they're selling them internationally, and even then that's usually subsidized by the local government. Like, capitalism is supposed to be this idea of like, it's the free market. The government doesn't need to get involved, and yet capitalists are perfectly fine with the government propping up farming industries. Why? Because we all die if we don't have farms. So like, that's an example of where ideology kind of needs to crack, where if people were fundamentally purists, if they were purely like, yeah, I'm an anarcho-capitalist, I believe the state shouldn't intervene, then we'd all be fucking starving to death. The farms wouldn't run, everything would fall apart. The government needs to prop it up. Clearly, capitalism needs the solution. Okay. So I want to get into this. But I need you to have that bookmark of like, where do ethical frameworks come from? Because that is relevant to what I think we should replace ideologies with for how we think about politics. So I want to talk about why I hate the way we talk about modern politics. Modern politics are talked about like this, right? You have people in the center. You have people on the left, and you have people on the right. That's modern politics. Some people have what they call horseshoe theory, where they say the far right and the far left are more close to another, but a lot of things tend to disagree with that. But here's what I find really dumb about this. We treat this like this absolute. There is left, there is right. But obviously, each individual person can have political values that leave one side and go to the other. So you might have noticed that a lot of communists and tankies, right? People who are on the far left are pro-gun. Well, does that mean horseshoe theory is real? Well, not really, because they're also anti-dictator. And the explanation could just be people are complex like that. But if we're having a framework that is apparently absolute, where there is a midpoint between two possible extremes, everything exists on this spectrum, it feels really stupid. Here's the bigger reason I don't like this as a theory. the bigger reason the left-right dichotomy, I think, is some dumb shit, okay? I was examining some science fiction. I think it was like Warhammer 40K. And there was a conversation I saw online about it where it's like, yeah, a lot of the traits of the Imperium of Man are very right-wing, right? But there's also things like, for the wealthy in 40K, they're pro-trans because it doesn't matter. As long as you serve the Emperor, what does it matter if you're trans? And it's so multicultural because of all the different planets in 40K that how are we going to keep track of everybody's culture? It doesn't really work. You can't map right and left. And then I saw something else really shortly after where they were talking about how ancient Rome, you can't really say if it's left or right because the modern definitions don't fit. And I got to thinking, wow, this is really fucking stupid. Why do we act like this is the correct political framework? Why do we act like left versus right is the correct way to look at politics when, like, literally in our history and in our theoretical future, the concepts don't work? And you might say, well, they're just meant to describe the modern world, but, like, are they? Do you know where these words come from? These words come from the fact that after the French Revolution, when they set up their house or whatever, I don't remember, they're MPs, they're the governors, members of parliament, I don't know, senators, when they set them up, right? The people who were more traditionalist sat on the right side of the amphitheater, and the people who were more revolutionary sat on the left side. Literally, the French Revolution, people of like-minded philosophies happened to pull up chairs, and that has determined our entire political discourse for like 200 goddamn years. That's stupid. That's insane. We've just decided that the absolute best way to look at politics is this. And like, then on top of that, we have all these weird terms we put in between it, right? Let me see. What does this say? Oh, I remember that. We have all these other things, right? So we have like libertarianism. What does libertarian mean, right? Well, libertarian means freedom. It means in theory, a small government, but it doesn't really, because there are libertarians who, because of their belief of freedom, are far left anti-authoritarian because they're like, yeah, we want a small government. But there's actually far left pro-large government libertarians because they're like, well, we get more freedom if the state is powerful and can protect us from our rights being taken by capitalists. But then there's far-right libertarians who are like, yeah, corporations should have complete freedom and the government only exists to protect the rights of those companies. So this doesn't fucking work. It doesn't apply well. Right and left are just labels. Ideologically be conservatism versus liberalism. Yes, you're right, and I want to get into that. So let's talk about liberalism. Let's talk about conservatism. It's kind of similar to how people talk about nihilism, like it's system of beliefs, where it more often manifests as depression. I mean, nihilism is a philosophy that no nihilists believe in or practice. So we can get rid of this. We can say the right versus left isn't a thing, and we can instead have liberalism versus conservatism. What do these mean? Well, guys, liberalism should be the absolute promotion of democracy. It should be pro-free speech. It should be pro-freedom of the press. It should be anti-monopoly because it's pro-competitive capitalism. So monopolies are bad. And you should have everybody's voice be recognized, and private corporations shouldn't be able to own monopolies of information. So a one person's money shouldn't have extra influence on speech. Do we live in that? Is that what American liberalism looks like? Well, you could also say neoliberalism, right? But even neoliberalism is supposed to be this absolute promotion of competitive capitalism, and neoliberalism is fully okay with this oligarchical control. Well, what's oligarchy? Well, oligarchy is the idea that there's these few wealthy people, and they're a member of the merchant aristocrat class, meaning they have a bunch of money and they own property, and because of all the money they make, they have a lot of power. Well, okay, so we're in an oligarchy? Well, are we in an oligarchy because the oligarchy we're in, is it a neo-oligarchy? Because a lot of the wealthiest people, their money only comes from speculation, not from making money. They own information sources like Twitter or Fox News or whatever. You see what I'm getting at? That, like, all of these things seem to break down. Conservatism, okay, so it's about tradition? Well, what tradition? Well, it's about these traditions. Well, then why does it keep going back? If it's about the traditions we have right now, why is it going back? And why is it going back inconsistently? Why do we want to go back to like the family of the 50s, but the taxes of the 20s? Shouldn't there be like a point that conservatism plants its flag? And if it's about conserving, if it's about keeping things as they are, why do conservatives push for the most destructive bills that are the most that are the bills that change democracy the most? So you see, like, all of these ideological bends break down constantly. People make exceptions. People break the rules. We use these as these bizarre floating frameworks, and they're locked in this moment. Have you seen the fucking fight about what fascism means? Hey guys, is Donald Trump a fascist? Well, it kind of depends what you mean by fascist, because according to a fuck ton of political scholars, he is definitely a fascist. And according to a bunch of other ones, he is definitely not a fascist. And according to a bunch of other ones, he's a new thing called a neo-fascist or a liberal fascist. And that will actually be a later topic of the stream, by the way, the weaknesses and strengths of liberal fascism. I'm really excited for that talk. It's going to be more freeform. But, like, none of these fit. And so many of the arguments I have about fascism, where I'm like, he's a fascist or he's not a fascist, the arguments people make lock fascism in one era. It can only exist in the 1900s. In this era, it's impossible. All of the structures needed to support it no longer exist in our modern world. What's the purpose of a term if it can't exist in the modern world? Most terms can. You can have a monarchy, okay, but isn't a monarchy where the crown has the power to rule? And England is a monarchy, right? We all agree England's a monarchy, but is England a monarchy if the monarchy doesn't rule? Like, the King of England can't do shit beyond the power of the bully pulpit, the power to speak to the people. They don't accomplish anything. In theory, they can, but I'm under a monarchy, and I gotta tell you, if the king told Canada to do anything, we would not do it. The king could do whatever the fuck he wants, and we'd spit on his feet. Like, these terms mean nothing, and you can say this is because people lie, but if everyone's lying all the time, then what the fuck is the point of ideology? Ideology doesn't mean shit. It's a really bad way to think about this. We're going to argue about what counts constantly. Here's the thing. Quill tip beak, Donald doesn't believe in fascism, but he's a fascist, capitalist, robber baron piece of shit. Is that true? Depends on the definition. Where do you draw the lines? And that's why I don't like this shit. That's why I dislike the way we talk about ideology. I think none of this actually means what it means. None of this is followed. None of this plays out the way it is. What can we use? All right? I want to talk about... Wait, let me just make sure I didn't skip a part. I want to make sure I didn't skip a part of my notes. Yep, that's fair. All politics... Yep, okay. Here's what I want. I want a system of examining politics, of examining where political movements are, where political incentives are, where the motion is, how people act, why they vote the way they do. I want something that exists in every era. Why? Well, because if there's anything I learned in anthropology, most industries, most fields of academia do not like this reality. Anthropology drives it home to you every single time you write a paper. Anthropology mentions the fact that humans are fundamentally the same as we ever were. We are the same animal, and we must be treated as an animal. The people of the past like to make jokes and be silly. The fucking Gilgamesh has fart jokes, probably. I know a lot of ancient myths do. I actually don't know about Gilgamesh. I ain't know shit about Gilgamesh. He, like, makes Tiamat cry or something. I don't know. His gay boy lover dies or something. Okay. So, let's talk about that, right? If humans have been the same all the time, what is the constant? It's the human animal. It's our nature as an animal. Now, you might be like, okay, human nature sucks. Everyone who talks about human nature is like, you gotta be an alpha, man. You don't want to be a beta cuck. Yeah, I know. The people who talk about human nature really, really do suck. But what you have to remember is we are a goddamn animal. There are aspects to our reality that come from our animal motivations. Yes, a thing that people make as an argument, and this is so true, what makes humans special is our culture can evolve as well as our physiology. We can evolve our education system, our beliefs, our philosophies, how we think about the world, our systems of politics to counteract human nature, to minimize the worst of our aspects. That is true, and I think we should do that, and we should see it as possible. But did you notice that we do need to build those systems and thought patterns to fight our nature, to counteract it? And here's the really important part. The motivators, the motivations, the things that push us in those systems and to build those systems are the exact same as they ever were, because there is a human animal. At no point will there be a civilization whose main ethical framework is making cages for birds. Or if they do, it will be religious. The only way I could see it happening is if you had a religion. If your religion, right, for some reason had come to say bird equal God, that is the only world where you could end up with a culture that builds things that way, that says the ethics belong to birds. This is exactly why patriarchy, racism, sexism, homophobia cannot be fixed. Nitrogen, you are absolutely wrong. Each of those can be fixed. The issue is probably not all of those can be fixed at the same time. There are so many goddamn civilizations in history that are missing one or two of those. It's just we keep ending up with a form of denial, a form of bigotry, right? Because nitrogen, I can find you civilizations that don't have any number of those, but I don't know if I'm going to find one that is missing all of them. Because there is some sort of motivator within us that doesn't change. But let's talk about what those motivators are. I want to talk about some aspects of human nature. I want to talk about some of the motivators that are our nature, right? So let's start with basic ones that all animals have, right? Or at least all mammals have. Because animals get really diverse, you have sponges and shit. Let's talk about all mammals, the really basic stuff. All mammals want food. Food, that's a motivator. We all want shelter, right? We all want safety. That's important. We love safety. We're big safety fan. Protect young. Mammals want to protect the young of their species. That is pretty unanimously true. Yes, sometimes there's rare exceptions, but overall, that is an instinct of mammals that I think is worth putting as a basic. Any safety wanters in chat? Yeah, any chatters out here wanting safety? Any safety wanters in chat? So these are like some very basic drives of mammals, right? So let's talk about some more advanced stuff, some things that not everybody has, okay? So one of the ones that we have is tribalism. We like to identify a tribe as our tribe. Libheart, that's beautiful. So we have tribalism. That is an aspect of our animal. And by the way, not every animal has that, but we're not the only ones that do. There are lots of animals with tribal instinct that band together as a group and wage war or steal from or dislike those outside their group or treat them tenuously. That's a really common thing. Here's another one. I can never spell this word, please, which is funny because it's like foundational to my philosophy. Hierarchy. Not every animal is hierarchical. There are lots of animals that shift leadership constantly, that don't have a designated leader, that just defer to the wisdom of the elders, but don't have leadership positions. Every single ape has a leader. Humans seem to always have leaders. Every civilization, we seem to always push towards having a hierarchical system. You can say that's not human nature. Guys, modern civilization doesn't need a leader. We could just have commerce and things would work. Like literally, there is no definitional need to have a president. Like, in theory, we could avoid it. Yet everyone seems to have this craving for there to be a person, usually a man, in charge. And you can say, oh, don't be sexist. Most cultures seem to defer to men in charge. There's exceptions. Most of the time, that is the case. Should we fight against that nature? Yeah, I think female leaders are perfectly fine. I think they are just as capable of doing good and bad as men because they're humans. I think the reason that our evolution probably pushed us towards men being in charge is because it's harder to beat men to death with your bare hands than women. And you want a leader who, like, if you're an animal, not in modern human civilization, this matters much less. If you are an animal, having a leader it's harder to beat to death with your bare hands is probably better for stability. And that is genuinely why I think our evolution tends to push us towards male leaders. Yeah, your previous comment was based on de facto and law and human nature. Nitrogen, I think yes and no, because I think those specific bigotries aren't human nature, but we'll get to where they come from. Because we'll talk about that a bit more, right? So let's talk about some other stuff, right? Here's a motivator unique to humans. Well, not unique, but that like not all animals have. Empathy. Our power of empathy is a huge motivator. We can see the suffering of another and feel it ourselves. We can simulate the feelings of another when we make decisions. That's a huge motivator. That is such a difference and such a thing that pushes us to act differently. Think about how differently humans would act if we didn't feel empathy. That is a very powerful motivational system. Also, biological essentials just consumed a larger percent of a person's life when we were freshly evolved. That's true. With human nature, you don't mean normal to be racist, but there will always be people who do those things. I think some of those, yes. I don't think all of them. I think patriarchy is one that will always keep emerging, unfortunately, unless we fucking gene edit that out of us. I don't actually think that there will always be homophobic people, because there have been really, really gay civilizations where people are perfectly fine with it. Like, people aren't disgusted by it at all. I think that one's cultural. That's why I partially disagree. So let's talk about another one. Anxiety. Anxiety, this comes from humans' ability to imagine harm that is not happening, to project to future harm. Not every animal feels that. Not every animal has the ability to imagine potential risk outside of the current environment. Many animals do. A lot of people theorize the reason that wolves and orcas don't attack humans is they are also social, intelligent, and vengeful animals, and they recognize those traits in us and have the forethought to think through the repercussions of killing a single human. That is genuinely the best theory biologists have for why they don't attack us, by the way, because they do eat other predators if they're starving. Yet very, very rarely, even hungry, will they kill us. Interesting to think about, right? All right. And I think the last important one I want to bring up is freedom. I think humans have a desire for freedom. I think a motivator is our ability to make our own choices for ourselves. So I want to talk about how I sort these out. I think some of these tend to lump together and be thought of very similarly. Now, I need to give a bit of a heads up, a bit of a warning about this. This is going to be a two-dimensional simplified diagram. You are an engine made of meat that has been evolving for like 3 billion years. Your culture, your history, your methods of interacting have been developing for a few million years. Like, when are the first hominids? Like 100 million years or something? No, not 100 million. That's past dinosaurs. 10 million? 10 million sounds right. Either way, hominids have existed for a long time. So your meat engine is this tangled mess of survival instinct and biology and hormones and structure built up over billions of years. A two-dimensional diagram simplifying our instincts is not going to be perfect or even a clean representation. That said, I think that argument applies pretty well to the left versus right. Mods make him stop talking about my meat engine. Never, motherfucker. But I think these can lump up pretty well. I think we can genuinely mostly lump all of the basic ones on top. Protect young, shelter, safety, anxiety. Anxiety, I think, can kind of go anywhere. Honestly, I think we don't have to talk too much about it because I think that promotes every single political instinct. I think anxiety pushes people to be more politically active, not in any political direction. I'm going to put empathy over here. I'm going to put hierarchy over here. I'm going to put freedom kind of here-ish. Mods make this man make a meat-based car draw engine for real, for real. We're going to put food and anxiety. We'll put food up here, I think. Tribalism. Gonna put that guy over here. More or less, I'm not doing a hierarchy of needs. What I'm going to talk about is where we are pushed by political motivators. Haven't watched since Mom Peace days, but this is your kind of random discussion. Hell yeah, Vanflo, welcome. I'm gonna sort it like this. You could do this in another way, but I think there are umbrellas here, okay? Okay? So, I'm going to put here an umbrella of liberty. I think liberty is a good catch-all for personal freedoms, the freedoms of those around you. There being more options, more you can do. I just need to check. Yeah, I should be more on this side. I think liberty is a good catch-all. Okay. I'm going to make hierarchy the big one and then replace the little hierarchy with like tribalism and leadership, or leaders. We'll say leadership. I think hierarchy is a good catch-all for these, and I like using it as a word. It's become like my go-to. Okay? And this one we're going to give the umbrella of stability. Okay? I think for the majority of people, their largest political instinct is going to be towards stability. Okay? I think the vast majority of people, the way they are going to politically interact with the world is stability. Oh yeah, satbility. It's satbility, guys. Okay. Why do I think this? When things are good, centrists win. Liberalism is able to be corrupted as much as it wants if people can eat, they're comfortable, they're warm, they're happy. Revolutions don't happen in peaceful countries. I think this gives us a drive towards peace. This gives us a drive towards prosperity. There is a reason that fundamentally radical change is not popular, right? I want you to think about something. When did the Civil Rights Act pass? People pretend it's because Martin Luther King Jr. did such a great job at breaking people's heart and convincing them to be ethical actors. This is where ethical frameworks come in. Guys, you can say the Civil Rights Act passed because of ethics, and you are correct, but not in the way that you like. You like to believe that what caused civil rights was empathy. That enough people went, I feel really bad for what's going on, and they went for it. Civil Rights Act didn't start to gain momentum until protests were disrupting everyday life. They were making it harder to get around, damaging the GDP, making people be afraid of riots. The Black Panthers were armed and dangerous. Like, people did die for civil rights. Literally, the civil rights movement didn't really gain momentum until the protests were disruptive enough that the stability of society was questioned. The ethical framework that was used to push the Civil Rights Act was not liberty and empathy and ethics. Well, it was ethics, but it was the ethics of civilization is better if it stays stable. Until there was a risk to cultural stability, the movement didn't gain that much momentum. And yeah, if you look at how Lyndon B. Johnson and JFK talked about wanting to pass and going to pass the Civil Rights Act, yes, they were motivated by empathy. But the vote towards them did not come until it seemed as though capitulating would increase stability, until it was unstable to not act on empathy. Because I'm not saying every person is mostly motivated by stability, but I think until things start to break down, until there starts to be a struggle, empathy is not enough to win an election. It will not get you enough to push forwards. Healthcare is only a successful talking point in the US because people want it. People need it. They're struggling. Their stability is questioned. Like how Russia started to break because of how the economy is being destroyed by the refineries going offline. Is it actually breaking? They do pretty good running on empty. Like Russia runs a ship that's barely riding. A ship without sails better than they run at full steam, I find. Like, for how corrupt their government was and how much they were barely surviving while wealthy, I think it's crazy how well Russia survived while poor. All right. So I think this is the primary motivator. Now, you might be wondering, what era are we in right now? Well, I think we are in a moment where there is such radical inequality, right, that stability for the everyday person is questioned. Have you guys noticed that all around the world, all the what do you call it, politicians, all the candidates who are running off of the framework of keep things the same, we're going to keep everything steady, all of them are losing. Why is that? Stability is in question. Not everybody feels like they can afford to live. Their anxiety is motivating them to seek another solution. That's why I kind of put anxiety down here. I feel like when people grow more anxious, they look for answers. Answers that could come from increasing liberty, from the politics of liberty and empathy, or politics of hierarchy. The liberal framework treats its prosperity as a privilege that may be given or withheld at the interest of the prosperity. Yes and no. I think yes in practicality, no in terms of ideology, which means, yeah, from my framework, absolutely, because I do think ideology is virtually fake. Okay. Liberty, right? I'm going to add one here because empathy, freedom, I think we have a drive towards fairness. I think a lot of people look at injustice and unfairness as a real, I don't know why I'm struggling for the word. It's the word I've been using the whole time, as a motivator. I think fairness is a motivator. I think that the pursuit of equality between people, the pursuit of raising taxes on billionaires, breaking up monopolies, a lot of those political initiatives over here could gain a lot of steam right now. But you were seeing the Democratic institution, the party of the Democrats, but also liberal centrist parties around the world, you were seeing them commonly defy this. Why? Well, it damages stability pretty substantially, right? to suddenly tax all of the people who have been greasing the wheels of politics. Politics have been effectively run by the cash of the wealthy. So every politician in office right now, hierarchy is inherently unfair. That's what I'm getting to. All of the politics in office around, all the politicians in office around the world right now have had the wheels of their democracy, their station, their privilege greased by the wealthy. So if you pursue freedom, fairness, empathy, that's going to be incredibly destructive. So if your ethical framework is this system stability benefits me, which if you're a politician, it does. You have a job in Congress. Very clearly, this system is working for you and yours. People are well off around you. You want to preserve this system, and pushing towards these politics will break the system benefiting you. That's why you're seeing Democrats and other centrists and Republicans and other center-right figures bowing down to the politics of hierarchy. Why is that? Well, because people are not voting towards stability right now. Democrats are trying to do so. The liberals in Canada only did so because we hate Trump right now. Around the world, these politics are failing. But instead of embracing the politics of liberty, people are going in this direction because it allows them to maintain this status quo they have, at least in theory. If you actually look at the practiced history of when politics becomes all about this, things get incredibly unstable. Everything breaks apart. But they are not claiming they will. The claim of the politics of liberty is that we will. The claim of the politics of hierarchy is not. We haven't really talked about what their politics look like. What do politics of hierarchy look like? Well, they look like saying there are those on top, those beneath. They lean into the tribalism of our group is better than your group. They lean into the idea of there are good people and bad people. Okay? In general, and I talked a bit about this last time, laws that are built for the benefit of liberty will be like, yeah, tax the rich if they get too rich, public support for everybody. Laws built for stability tend to do whatever will keep things going as they are and maintaining status quo. Laws in the world of hierarchy aren't really laws. When you lean hard into hierarchy, you end up with things like absolute monarchy or dictatorships, where what determines right and wrong, what determines good and bad, stops being, oh, this person broke the law, this person did a bad thing, and becomes, they're the good guy, so they did the right thing. They're the bad guy, so they did the wrong thing. I think it is a fundamental failure of the ability for people with this political leaning to see the truth of this movement that has led us to where we are. This idea does not actually promote stability. This idea doesn't either. This rocks the boat. You so many revolutions after you have liberty politics pushed, where suddenly the oligarchs want their seat back and promote coups, where people leave the country or burn down their own factories because they weren't going to make money anymore. When people have their position questioned, when people have their stability taken, they do fight back. This is inherently unstable, which is why it's really fucking hard to get seasoned politicians to agree with it. Because the system as it is benefits these people an absolute fuck ton, right? That is so much of why this is fucking difficult. Yet, this will be more destructive to stability. Absolutely it will be. The politics of hierarchy are a world where there are the good guys and the bad guys. And everybody believes this to an extent. Think about how our current system, because how well you're doing is based off of money, rich people face fewer consequences for crime. It's seen as perfectly normal for a wealthy person to commit a crime and get off from it. We don't really feel that way when we're talking about the poor, do we? So this instinct is in all of us. And I think it's actually worth noting. All of these instincts are in all of us. Like, everybody has these leanings. We are all the same animal. The difference is which one motivates you the most, how they are manifesting in the current era, and how much the pressures of the current era are pushing people who have a bias towards one usually down to another, right? This is what changes. This also better explains than horseshoe theory, while you'll have a bunch of people who can easily shift between these two. Have you guys noticed that young men are the ones most likely to radically shift from being a far right to a far left voter? The Bernie bro Trump fanatic phenomenon, where there are lots of people, and he's not a young man, but fucking Joe Rogan is among this political group who they look at people like Bernie and they look at people like Trump as the right thing. Well, have you also noticed that young men in business are the ones who pitch themselves as disruptors? Testosterone actually has a funny little side effect of making you care less about your own well-being, of making you want to make riskier decisions and engage in more destructive actions. I think that just translates to politics. I think that if you don't care about stability, if stability is a weakened motivator for you, you are easily swayed to either of these disruptive politics, either of these counter-stable politics. If anyone wants further reading on the topic, Dying of Whiteness by Jonathan Metzl is a very enlightening book. Interesting, interesting. Conditions worsening, voter base cannot be status quo is functioning. I mean, yeah, people's material conditions are getting worse. The status quo is not working. It is meaning that if people have any incentive away from stability, it's pushing them further away from stability. And both of these can be appealing. This one of like, yeah, the rich should get it. And yeah, this one of, yeah, you are entitled to more and you are the good guy who's right. The swing between them and why the swing kind of stops is I think a lot of the people who engage. Okay, so here's the issue. Here's the issue, right? I think a lot of the people who are swayed by this won't actually be ever swayed, right? To want this. Okay? This is going to get so weird to explain, but I want to try to explain to you why a bunch of Bernie bros exist, why you can have Trump guys who will vote for Mamdani. And it's not because these motivators suddenly work. All right? Have you noticed that this section, we have empathy? I think tons of leftist policies come from empathy. Think about how many right-wing policies will make life better for some people. How many pro-stability centrist policies will make life better for the people that are already benefiting, right? Who benefits under the values of liberty? Who benefits under what is usually called left-wing values? Basically fucking everybody. If everybody except those on top tend to be benefited by this. So the reason I think people are swayed this way is weirdly enough not by motivating these motivators. Because I think if these motivators are leading you, I think if the motivators that are primarily pushing you are the idea of tribalism, of us versus them, of I've been wronged, I don't actually think you are the type of person that is going to shift to thinking, yeah, everybody deserves a chance. The people who shift are because these policies want to genuinely improve life for all people, including you. So when people are shifting people from here to here, it's by appealing to these motivators. Because suddenly, right? Suddenly, using the politics that are usually used by people who act on these motivators, you can't win them over. If things are already going bad for people, centrist positions being like, yeah, everything's good. Think about how much the Democrats were like, but look at the GDP, look at the GDP, things are good, inflation's going down, things are good. That didn't motivate anybody because things were bad for them. But someone saying, yeah, I'm going to fix things for everybody is suddenly actually appealing to these sensibilities better than these people are. So that's the weird thing. This populist angle, this like weight of the tribes, fervor of the masses politics that socialists seem to get in these circumstances, I don't think at all is coming from people suddenly shifting what we'd call leftwards. That shift is coming from people wanting safety, stability, etc., and being okay being swayed to a riskier path to get it. I think it's the same motivators from people with less to lose. That's kind of my reading on it. I think this method of looking at politics is better in a lot of ways. For one, it explains horseshoe theory better. It explains this fact that radicals on these sides can engage in similar politics a lot better because a lot of the times these are just politics that are anti the current politics of stability and maintenance of the status quo, right? I think that this works better because it applies through all eras and all cultures. We don't have this weird, well, our left looks like this thing. No. It's just, are you engaging in the politics of liberty, hierarchy, or stability? What are people pitching? And you can, on hearing people talk, almost immediately understand what they're saying. You can almost immediately understand where they're coming from under this framework. Like, it takes so little effort. You listen to a right-wing presenter be like, yeah, you know, the Civil Rights Act was bad. And you immediately know that's someone speaking from hierarchy. That doesn't maintain the status quo better. Capitalism functions worse in that way. Democracy functions worse. That is just the hierarchical branding of there is a worse person and a better person. You can someone say, yeah, I think everyone should get healthcare, and know they're speaking from the politics of liberty. Super, super super, super simple, pretty unanimously applies, and I think this functions really well. Now, I invite actual people who are politically educated to tell me why I'm a dumbass for this. If you're watching this on YouTube and you have a backing in political science, please tell me what I got wrong here. But I think this works better. You like how my right-wing presenter voice is a dead ringer for Alex? Yeah, no, it's just Alex Jones. I had to eat potato quick. Give me a second. Now you listen here. What we need is less taxes on the rich. You know, they're taking my money. Who are they giving it to? Giving it to trans prisoners, trans Hispanics. You know, those Hispanics are so trans. That's what they're saying about it. Trans thing's going big in Mexico right now. That's what they're all talking about right now. And my taxes, a rich guy, they're all going there. Now you got to buy supplements if you're going to be safe from the trans Mexicans. Otherwise they're going to get you. The misspelling of hierarchy is a bit at this point, right? Mountain ash tree, I can't spell it. I can never spell this fucking word. It's so essential to how I talk about politics. And I always misspell it. No, despite it being a word that I have learned the spelling of many times, that I've looked up, that I've tried to drill into my brain, I can't. It's like necessary. I am never going to remember how to spell necessary or hierarchy. They're eating the straights, they're eating the cis. They're out here and they're gonna get us. English spelling just fucked. It isn't this bad in other languages, but it's worse in some other languages, you know. All right, we got a few things to question. So yeah, populism's all that explains that. I think I talked about all my stuff. Quill tip beak. You don't have any background politics or what you're talking about, but you're thinking since you're a special boy, that definitely knows more than me. So, like, clearly, you see who won that debate? Yeah, Quill tip. Your mommy told you special boy, and you won for sure. Yeah, I don't have an education in this, but this is something I feel very confident about. I think the better way to look at politics that is going to make you feel more educated about it is that you look at what motivates people. You look at why people make the decisions they make as the core of this. The invasion of Canada makes sense now. We got trans Canada all the way across Canada. Mountain Ash Tree. That's a good bit. I want to talk lastly about what this means, okay? Here's the thing, guys. Here's what this means. If you are finding it really frustrating to deal with right-wingers, and I've said this before, there is a reason. They are not illogical. They are perfectly logical. Their system of thought is completely coherent. But you are used to thinking in terms from an era of enlightenment, where we figured out that stability is better preserved if we keep things accurate and truthful. Which actually, you know what? I would put honesty up here. I think genuinely we have cravings for honesty and tradition, and I think those are part of stability. I know the right wing claims tradition, but I actually think centrist politics fuck with tradition a lot better than stability. And I guess this is tradition less in the terms, by the way, of like, oh yeah, culture can't change, and more in the terms of there are like ways that we do things. There is a way that things are done. Because I think the word can be used in a lot of ways. I think you could equally put tradition over here, and it would be the other definition of tradition, where you mean, yes, there is a way things are supposed to be. There's a way things are supposed to be ordered. Up here, what it more means is like, yeah, there's rules of decorum. There's expectations to be met. That sort of thing. I know it makes it look confusing, but we treat the word tradition like it means like the 4 fucking different things. So like, bear with me. I don't know a bit like I'll put decorum, but it's not quite right. I just want to put a different word. Look, don't worry. To hit good, I have the exact same problem where I hear a word and I think of a song. So we have learned that things are more stable if you practice a worldview of truth and reality. I think, unironically, this craving of liberty and freedom pursues data less fervently usually. Um, yeah, tradition is fucking everything. I think we as leftists should try to pursue truth. I think truth convention. Oh god, man! But then that means both things. Also, is the issue. I think we're good as is. I think we're good as is. I think we keep it like this. So I think we should keep truth in mind, and truth usually benefits leftists because data tends to speak our points, at least in the era we're in. But I do think that our drive for empiricism, for wanting science that gets to the reality of what things are, does come from our political motivation of stability. And like I said, I think everyone carries all of these motivators. It's just about which ones are pressuring you the most. So which ones are you acting on the most? What are you more genetically inclined towards? What have your life experiences taught you to be inclined towards? And what have circumstances taught you to be inclined towards? I think all of these are motivators for all humans. But I think empiricism was mostly driven by this. Pure hierarchy does not need empiricism because the world is no longer about being stable. The world is no longer about the preservation of the status quo. If your politics are purely about hierarchy, if your politics are purely about who is the right way to do something, who is the wrong way to do something, right? You don't give a shit about empiricism. So when you're thinking that right-wing people you're seeing or talking to are being hypocritical or illogical or going back on what they're talking about, they are not at all. It is because you are used to an empiricist framework that your culture arrived at to preserve stability, to make better choices, to keep the world grounded. Their framework of logic is about who is good and who is bad. Everything they do is 100% consistent and logical if you understand that logic does not always mean the same thing. We have pattern-seeking brains. Our brains are designed to find logic, meaning the answer to a pattern. That's all. That's all logic is the answer to a pattern. So, if your pattern of thought, if your pattern of logic is black people are bad, white people are good, then a white guy punching a black guy is fine. That's what happens if you have that framework. If your framework is the rich and powerful are better than the poor, then it's okay that rich people commit crimes. You don't need to look into it. It's perfectly consistent. Have you noticed that everyone's like, oh, the left is all political violence. They call us fascists and dehumanize us. And there's thousands of clips of Trump saying that about the left. That is not a logical failing. There is nothing wrong. It is bad when you do it because you are the bad guy and they're the good guy. It is good when they do it because they're the good guy and you're the bad guy. Every single thing that you see as oxymoronical or hypocritical from the right wing is because the paradigm of logic used by the modern right, and this isn't all right wingers, the fucking centrist right used to be fairly stability focused. There was a bit of the hierarchy touch of less taxes, money should affect politics more, and that did decay our system, but there was empiricism. Empiricism is no longer needed in a purely hierarchical worldview, right? Why would it be? What benefit does it serve? If your goal is preserving hierarchy, preserving that there are good guys and bad guys, it literally doesn't matter. Why do you think Trump is mostly going after black women mayors? Why are the cities he hates the most black women mayor cities? Because a black woman being in charge of a white populace goes against hierarchy. That's not allowed. It is a defacement. It's only logically inconsistent if you believe Trump is being truthful. No, I believe he is. Have you seen some of the times he tries to lie? Plus, like, genuinely, I think you are going to fail to argue these points and to understand things if you think that they are doing this, like, not believing what they're saying. Like, you are believing they're saying, haha, we're getting away with it. We know it's bad for us to say that they're demons. Or you're thinking they're saying, it should be okay for them to call us demons, but I'm going to pretend I don't like it so they stop. That's actually not what's happening. What's happening is they genuinely believe it's good when they say it and bad when you say it. That is the belief. That is what they believe in their heart. And I think if you try to convince yourself that that isn't what they believe, you will be misled. Now, I do think you are right that many right-wing presenters know that in an empirical world they are lying. But they also know that their worldview does not care about empiricism. Their worldview's logic is determined by the outcomes of an emotional reality, of an emotional truth. That is what matters. That's what determines truth from fiction. It builds stronger subjective realities and just outright delusions. And the thing is, the issue is, it stops being a delusion when enough people believe in it. 35% of the US firmly supports Trump. Okay? Firmly supports Trump. They're unshiftable. Okay? So think about that. That means there is over 100 million people in the United States, well over 100 million, who 100% believe that the guy who shot Charlie Kirk was trans and a radical and had a trans girlfriend and was super trans, and it was the trans agenda that anti-fudded him into killing Charlie Kirk. And you can say, but that's not true. Who the fuck gives a shit? 100 million people think that's true. Now, there is some evidence, some actual evidence that the roommate might have secretly been a trans lover now because some friends of his have said it, which is fucking crazy. The idea that that could be true with the way it was first reported blows my mind. And look, I'll apologize if it gets any real backing, like if that turns out to be true. The point is, wasn't trans himself, probably wasn't radicalized by the trans agenda. And even if that's the case, right-wingers present larger threat for political violence. But for 100+ million people in the United States, that doesn't matter. The truth is that the left are violent and that the right aren't. And any right-wing violence to them either didn't happen or is justified because they're the good guys. It is that simple, and trying to find all of these catches and gotchas is just a waste of time. The best you can do is stop other people from slipping to it by being like, oh, no, I understand what you're saying. You're saying that it's okay when you do it because you're the good guy. Right. Okay. Like, dismiss it. Show that this is the framework. The best thing you can do, because you're not convincing them, because they no longer believe in objective reality. TCO, I'm seeing a lot of... I said some confident shit that I think was wrong last stream. I'm going to back off talking about the shooter until we know more. I do think all of the evidence we've seen is fake and they've deleted his social media, which they wouldn't do if he was an actual leftist. I know that for sure. You feel like there's a difference between lying and saying some shit as a performance in terms of being able to lie? Like a stand-up might not be telling 100% truth. The difference is simple. Mountain Ash Tree, it's not about if they're lying or not. It's about truth doesn't matter. Like, you are still thinking under the terms that this matters. Like, this is gone. Empiricism is gone to them. They literally don't, it doesn't matter. You think we're saying the same thing? Their principle is not about political violence bad. The principle is they deserve to win. Fabrizio, yes, you're exactly right. But Mountain Ash Tree, you're trying to find what stretch truth or counts as truth. But what you need to understand is when you are looking at people on the right now, at least the far right, which is most of them now, the radicalization's been insane. You're saying Trump might not be a great liar, but he's doing a performance. That's true. He is a very good performer. That's true. I just think, like, I've seen a lot of people trying to argue, like, well, if we highlight that their points are... No. The reason we need to point this out when we are interacting with people on their side and be like, oh, I get it, you're just saying you're the good guys, so it's okay when you do it, is because this can still lure people in who listen to their fake logic and get suckered in. We need to stop more people from joining if we can. We need to stop anyone in the center from being appealed to by this by just pointing out that this is what they're doing. They're saying, okay, yeah, I get it. Truth doesn't matter. You win because you're the good guy. You win because you're a hero or whatever. Yeah. When Trump lies and it's a deliberate lie instead of something he believes, it's so obvious, but he often lies believing it's truth. There's an argument you've heard that truth is what you make of it, so they just need to have enough people believe it. Exactly. Damador, it is basically true. If 100 million people are acting on a shared reality, what is the difference between that and truth? It's fundamentally the same thing. Truth and, like, reality aren't always lined up. You hope Trump dies of a disease or another soon so they lose their cult leader. I've talked about what'll happen after he dies a bit. I don't want to get into it right now, but, like, I don't know, man. I don't know if it does anything. I'm gonna eat another piece of potato. Ow. Oh, good. Yeah, exactly, Van Flo. And I think people are too afraid of breaking decorum with right-wingers right now, where they try to give them the benefit of the doubt. But when people are believing in a shared delusion that is a reality entirely distinct from real life, you kind of just need to roll with it. Otherwise, they're going to fucking cry bully you. Have you seen all the cry bullying? Where Erica Kirk is like, you should go out and murder them all for my dear beloved. And then everyone's like, how dare you challenge how she grieves? Fuck off. Hey, Erica Kirk, fuck yourself. If you think Trump dying is good, you're risking that the next thing is worse. TCO, No, you're not. I've seen this before. I've seen this before. Here's what I've come to, right? I've come to realize something. They don't have the sauce. No one has Trump's charisma. And when here, the way that people work is they put love and soul and heart into dear leader. They worship him as a god. If he names a successor and says this person carries on my will when I die, it keeps going. I swear to God, this will keep rolling for fucking ever. We'll have a dynasty. Let me guess. Are you people from the US? Sarah, you're so bad at guessing games. I'm from Canada, where our politics are boring, so we talk about the US. Yeah, no, it's not about worse. It's about if he exactly culturally survived past the leader. If Trump doesn't declare a successor, someone who carries his will with them beyond death, I think it will fall apart. I think the wheels are off the bus. Basically every time a beloved cultish emperor figure dies, there ends up being a power struggle that tears apart the unity of the faction based off of people trying to say, no, I carry the real heart of the leader. If Trump names a successor and says, that's right, my boy Eric, he carries my soul, he's the successor, I think this becomes really fucking hard to tear apart. Now, the fact that Eric doesn't have Trump's charisma does benefit us, but it gets a lot harder to pull this apart if he does that. But if he doesn't, I think it'll still be bad, but it'll be like a new kind of bad. It's the same thing, actually. Hi, by the way. Hello. I don't like Canadian politics. Canadian politics are boring. America, look, I don't want to live in America, but your politics are fun to talk about. I'm glad I don't live there. Oh, I'm really glad I don't live there. All right. You feel like Canada's politics is an exercise and shit's going on behind the scenes, but, well, at least it's not the US. Mountain Ash Tree, you're so right. And I've said before, my least favorite thing about Canada is that our politics often boil down to, well, we're not them. Fuck that. Weak ass shit. Weak ass shit. All right, guys, we're going to move on to the next topic. Are we ready? We ready? We ready to move on to the next topic? We're going to talk about why traditionalism is a fucking lie. Because it is. Traditionalism is a lie. What did I call it in the announcement? I think I came up with a really good title. I want to go look. Stream updates. Conservatism is not about tradition. That's fine. All right, we've changed the title of the stream. You just need to make sure of something. If you don't mind me asking, where do you see the world in the next 10 years? I have failed to predict politics beyond like a week. At this point, I see so many possible things happening. The issue is a fuck ton of the way that I predicted the world and have been wrong is that things have gotten worse faster than I thought they would. So I don't like that I'm wrong because it doesn't say things will be good. It says they'll be worse than I think. I think the thing is, the fine details on how Trump dies and what happens after are going to shape the future of America in ways we could not begin to imagine. A tiny change could absolutely alter how these political forces are acted out. Like, when a cultishly obsessed over leader dies, fucking anything can happen, and it all comes down to the minute details at the time of death. It's so difficult. Traditionalism. Fake. Okay. Then we're gonna do this the little details too, we call them. The issue is also, here's my prediction that I'm putting behind. See, told that you both are the same. Am I from the political wing who supports democracy? I think democracy is the best we've got. I think democracy is a shit fucking system and we don't have a better shit fucking system. Yeah, I don't know. I think Kirk wasn't the guy. Maybe Kirk is. There's not that many figures as charismatic as Trump. Look, I like democracy. I'm a dem head. All right, let me type this out. Okay, now we're gonna open a new folder. Get ready for this. Bum 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 bum. I guess I'm gonna Sorry, this is going to be a separate YouTube video, so I just need a second. There we go. And now we just need to turn off the green screen so that I can get a map in here when I need. Don't worry, we'll get back to actually talking. We had like 6 people leave while I was doing this. This is only going to take a minute. Have some patience, folks. Have some patience. By God, we don't need 6 people jumping ship every time I turn off a color key. All right, let me go grab a map of the world. We're gonna need some props for this one, and I need you guys to pretend you're not watching me get the props. That's an important part, is pretending you can't see me grabbing the props. Okay? Why my 3 principal points were stability, liberty, and hierarchy? Because I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I was thinking of what umbrella terms our human motivators tend to fall under. How when we act on one thing, it tends to put us in the same camp. So in my experience, people who are motivated by freedom, empathy, and equality all tend to end up in the same camp together. Now, they don't have to, but I think those motivators are often enough linked together that I put them under liberty as a broad head. That's just because in my mind, that tends to be how they are lumped. I don't think there is any essential to that, but I do think you will see that more often than not, and I wanted to create a framework that I think works throughout history. All right. I like this map. I like maps that look like they would be printed on paper. You know that feeling when a map looks like they would actually print it on paper? And now I'm going to grab one more thing. Hell yes. Okay. I need... Who can leave at a time like this? You want Strimmer to read your political takes and true and untrue you thoroughly? Look, I'm never going to untrue everybody. I mean, I'll untrue people when I think they're actually lying. But what I will say is I don't like to do the, oh, you're so wrong. Yeah. If someone's not actually lying, I would rather not be like a dick about it. Fuck it, we're gonna need to make the timeline ourselves. Okay, we're ready for the intro. It's time. Actually, you know what? We're gonna get a white square up in there. Then we'll do it. Like, if someone's lying, I'll tell them they're wrong, but, like, most of the time, I am going to prefer to be like, hey, here's why I think you think this way, but I think you're incorrect. But also, being a dick, like, at a certain point... At a certain point, the way to be a successful streamer is just to be really bold and brash. And that does mean being a dick sometimes, and I oftentimes immediately regret it. I'm like, sorry, I went too far. I don't want to hurt your feelings. All right, ready? What's up, Internet? You have probably heard at some point in your life that liberalism is about wanting to change things, and conservatism is about wanting to maintain them and stick to tradition. And I get why you would think that to be true. The reason you think that's true is because you were told that. You were told that, and usually the politics of conservatives come from the past. It is pretty common. Like, it tends to be retroactive. But I want to start with the fact that, like, what the fuck does tradition mean as a political argument? Like, what is tradition as a political belief? Let me tell you, that's nothing. That's nothing. Tradition isn't a political stance. Tradition is an argument. It's a way to argue a point. I, as a leftist, use traditionalism when I need to talk about, yeah, the village should raise the child, so we should have community support. That's appeal to tradition. Or when, which is a fallacy, I know, but it's compelling sometimes. Or when I want to talk about how we should return to the tax system of FDR from the 1940s. That is, in theory, an appeal to tradition. That's using the past as a selling point for what's to come. So if I, a leftist, can be appealing to tradition, why do we say the right wing is tradition as what it represents? I'm here to talk about why that is, like, that's not a political belief. Like, that isn't a thing. Okay, so let's hop over and talk about this. And now I need to switch to the big face mode. Big face mode! Where is it? I keep clicking on the wrong thing, y'all. Oh, wait, I need to switch away from big face. That's what's wrong. I'm on it. Well, at least my hair looks nice today. All right. This is a map of the United States. Let's talk about the timeline of the United States, right? Guys, we are going to give conservatives the benefit of the doubt. We are going to explore tradition. We have here our beautiful sacred timeline. So let's talk about it. If tradition is a thing, then clearly conservative politics are pointing to a time period that counts as the tradition. So let's start with, like, I don't know, fucking 200 years ago, right? What font do I want? Arial black. Okay, let's start with 200 years ago. 200 years ago is what we're going to start at. So let's go like 1800. Wow, 1800. That's pretty far ago. That's crazy. So we're going to start with 1800. That's a place we could be looking at for tradition. We got the modern day of 2025. We're probably not looking there because then it wouldn't be traditional, right? Then we have like 1900, right? So that'd be like right here. And then we got like 1950. We're gonna do some little things here, right? We got 1950. We got like 2000. It's not even. Don't at me. It's not gonna be even. Defaulting tradition presupposes at some point in the past was solved and became broken by outside forces. Absolutely, but that is such a common conservative belief. I think, despite being very progressive in a lot of ways, the politics of Lord of the Rings, its political philosophy is very conservative. Why? Well, because while in theory it's anti-fascist, anti-dictatorship, right? It's also a world where every iteration of civilization is guaranteed to get worse, and the past was infinitely better, and we are always hearkening back to a better world where things were solved, and God is absolute good, and loyalty to God is purity. Like, that philosophy of things were always better in the past and we should hearken back to it, that's pretty common, and that's an argument for conservative politics a lot. All right, guys, so let's look at this, because clearly we need to find when conservatives are talking about. So we're going to talk about like some conservative beliefs. So let's talk about abortion. Abortion is a common conservative belief, okay? So let's figure out what time period is perfect. When are we going back? I'm going to go find out when in the US was abortion made legal. When was abortion made legal USA? Let's find out. All right, 1973. So at some point before 1973, this is when things were good. So we know it can't be after 1973, right? 1973, that's the good era. That's somewhere in here. This is tradition. Everything past this isn't tradition. We know that now, right? So nothing past this is tradition. Okay? Perfect. Now I'm gonna Google something. Oh shit. Well, okay. Well, guys, abortion was actually only made illegal in 1820. Okay, so I Googled it, and abortion was only made illegal in 1820. Why am I associating it with abortion? Well, conservatives don't want abortion. Conservatives think abortion's bad. So if conservatism is about tradition, if we're going to find when tradition lives, we need to use conservative beliefs. So that way we can find out when tradition is, okay? So abortion was made legal in 1973, right? And it was made illegal in 1820. So clearly, tradition lives somewhere between 1820 and 1973, because that's the good time. But you're talking about the good times. The good times started by the I'm not. Look. They're saying they want tradition, right? They want tradition. That's what I'm talking about. They want the nuclear family, though. We know that. And this actually helps us narrow it down a lot, because the concept of the nuclear family instead of a larger extended family living in the house actually only started in 1950. Not like the year 1950, but around there. So we know it has to be somewhere around here, right? Okay. So tradition is somewhere between 1950 and 1973. Okay? Okay. This one doesn't help us because doing gay shit was made legal in 2003. So getting rid of the gays, that's way past. What else is a conservative belief? What do they want? What do they like? What do they want? They don't like the gays. We know Charlie Kirk didn't like the Civil Rights Act, right? When was Civil Rights Act Past USA. 1964. Guys, Civil Rights Act was 64, so it's before then. Okay. Perfect. We're getting there. We're getting there, boys. So, the Civil Rights Act. Home ownership. They do want to force births. They want women to be subjugated. They want white supremacy. We're figuring that out bit by bit. But the Civil Rights Act was, what did I say? I said 64. Yeah, so it's around 64. We're narrowing it down when tradition lives. Really narrow. We're getting so close, guys. I think we're going to get there. I think we're going to get there, and we're going to understand what tradition means, and then we'll be able to be real conservatives. So, 1964. It's between 1950 and 64. Bring back booty music, punk rock to save the left. That's true. Get rid of the tree hugging hippie. Well, the tree hugging hippies were there, but they weren't the thing. Having your own home. The conservatives love that. I think there's better solutions because owning your own home leads to housing being a commodity. I think the idea of having your home forever is cool, but I think that can be a government provided thing. I say that as a homeowner, but I'm not saying that because it benefits me, right? Oh, I think there's better ways. When in USA was home ownership the highest? Fuck. Guys, this is tough. We have a problem. I need to find a chart. This has to be wrong. The data must be wrong. Chart USA home ownership percentage. Oh. No, guys, we have a problem. We have a problem. This is really bad for figuring out when tradition is. This is really bad for figuring out when tradition lives. Guys, tradition is supposed to be between 1950 and 64, but if you look at this, home ownership was actually really low in 62. And it got at its highest in 2004? Okay? Nobody panic. Nobody panic. Nobody panic. It's fine. This is going to be one slip up, and conservatism isn't fake, and tradition isn't fake. I swear to you, I wouldn't lie to you like this. We're on an adventure together, and we're going to figure this out. We're going to find tradition. I know we will. I believe in us with everything in my heart. So we just got to put home ownership where it is. Control for population. What does control mean? Like, I'm trying to, like, when was the population most controlled? That's a tough thing to ask, you know? I don't think conservatives see themselves as wanting a controlled population. We're talking about what they're arguing for, right? We're not talking about like the worst version of them. What we see. We're looking. It tied to the housing bubble. That is true. To be fair, homeownership in 1998, 2004 is part of the housing bubble. I mean, that's fair, but okay. Let's see. People have said they don't want women to vote, so we got to figure it out. When were women allowed to vote in the U.S.? USA, when were women allowed to vote? Let's find this out. No. What? This is a lot. This cat. Guys, we've run into another problem. Guys, we've run into a problem. If we don't want women to vote, which a lot of conservative speakers don't, there is a huge problem. The time that women couldn't vote is before 1900. Sorry, 1920. Women all could vote. No, but this doesn't line up. When's tradition? When? What percent of the population owned homes? That's what controlling means. I mean, yeah. Part of the problem is that they imagine what a certain time period looks like, but that can't be right. Damador, they have to be true. Tradition has to be real. Tradition can't be a political alignment if it doesn't work. When were women allowed credit cards? Clearly that's it. Because it's not about voting, it's about when were they allowed credit cards. Allowed credit cards. This will help us figure it out. Okay. 1974. So that doesn't narrow it down, but it puts us in the right time period. Yep, that puts us, that's fine. We're fine. You think tradition here is cultural and not legal, perhaps? Perhaps it is. Perhaps it is. So we got to think about this. We got to find a cultural metric. Just give me a moment. Well, I mean, so if we're not looking at gay rights, if we're looking at like gay people, if we're looking at gay people being treated well, there's actually one that I know a little bit about, which is it was actually a lot higher around like the 20s, and then it got worse again from like here to like here, right? So it still puts us in this time period, right? Of like 1964 to 1973. We got to find one. What is another conservative argument? What is a law they are looking to pass? Age of marriage. No, here's the thing. I believe that conservatives are pushing for pedo shit. They don't. We got to push for what they actually push for. I'm going to look up like bullet points project 2025. Let's see. What I got to look for what they're pushing, right? Oh, yeah. Getting rid of national parks is one of them. So before national parks were made a thing, when did the US protect national parks? Because Trump hates national parks, so it's clearly before national parks. Yeah, national park. Guys, this is a problem. Guys, it's supposed to be conservative to get rid of national parks, but national parks were Roosevelt's in 72. That doesn't. Shit. Fuck. We were right on his tail. We were figuring out where tradition lived, and now I don't know, man. Now I don't know because it's 1872. Like that's way before. Oh my god, that's fucking the national parks. They were a thing this whole time. Fuck. And women could vote in 64. They couldn't have credit cards yet. But we did have national parks. Well, maybe it is cultural. I'm gonna look something up. I got one that I know they don't like. Oh, he was national forest, not parks. Perfect, perfect. Okay, we've narrowed it down a little bit, guys. We've noticed it. Oh, unions is important. We've narrowed it down a little bit, guys, because women's studies courses, this is important, started in 1970. Right? So it's before 1970 because that's when we started doing women's studies courses. Okay. Unions? Unions is good. All right. Yeah. USA chart on union membership. Oh yeah, this is good. This is good. So we want low unions. We want low unions because unions are socialist propaganda. So whenever unions are the lowest is what the fuck? No, this can't be. This can't. We have to get an older one. This only started in 2004. We must find an older graph, a graph that goes back further. Because this one clearly doesn't. Okay. This one doesn't go back far enough to find tradition. It doesn't find her heart. So let's look at union membership, right? Okay, this will tell us everything about tradition. This will find her. So it was at its lowest in 1930? What? Guys, no, that can't be. No. It can't be 1930. What? No. Well, they don't. They hate unions. They've said so. But it's 1930. But 1930 is before our. That's too long ago. We have to do it, but like that's not. Oh fuck. Where the fuck is tradition? God damn it. We're getting there. We're gonna figure it out, but like that feels before. Okay. Okay. Wouldn't it be more exacting to point to 1850 when Marxism was created as a counter? Yeah, but if we go before 1850, we don't have any of the good stuff, you know? Like the national, we don't have national parks, so that's good. That's good. But like, then home ownership is bad, and we don't have the nuclear family, and abortion is legal. Like that's a problem. Conservatives tug their collar uncomfortably when you point out the New Deal was fundamentally socialist. They conservatives now that it's hard to talk to don't like the New Deal. Like I've talked to I have not seen a conservative speak well of the New Deal in a very 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 long time. Conservatives do hate public education. So let's find out, guys. When was public education made a thing? When did the US start public education? This will tell us, because clearly before public education, things weren't so much. All right. The common schools were pushed for and implemented in 1830. Oh, fuck. So maybe it's before, but then abortion. Fuck. Guys, there has to be a time that was tradition, but it's getting harder to find. This is tough. This is hard. Okay. Well, we still got to put it on the board. Yeah, because like it's something. I don't know, man. This is tough. This is getting harder. It's getting harder to breathe. All right. What is being pushed for lately? What's being pushed for lately? So lately, child labor laws, I mean, that's being pushed for in some states. Trump's a conservative. Trump's been pushing for this idea of, right? Getting rid of media protections, right? Making it illegal to speak ill of the leader. So let's find out, when in the US was it illegal to publish negative opinions about the leader? Oh, you know what? Yeah, well, I mean, we could do deportation, but I want this one. When in the US was it illegal to publish negative opinions of the president? Now, this is pretty tough, guys. The colonial government didn't. In the 19th century, sort of, not really. 20th century, the Espionage Act made some things. Guys, it didn't happen. It didn't. Yeah, no. Trump is actually pushing to make people lose their media license if they speak ill of him. That is an actual push that he has stood by for the last few days. But I'm trying to find it, and like the closest thing was the Office of Censorship in 1941. But even then, that was not quite the same thing. Too much cheese is American, maybe dairy production. That's not a conservative talking point. That's not a conservative push. Okay. All right. We don't have that one, but what we could do is there's another thing where, like, I mean, like it's a type of tradition, right? This is a lot like tradition, where if we go over here, and we go to like North Korea, or like we go back to like 70s Soviet Russia, it was illegal to speak ill of the leader, or like McCarthyist United Kingdoms in the 80s, right? So like, yeah, so like there's tradition about, but all of these are too recent. If we go a little further back, like I guess Spain or Germany, I guess Soviet Russia. Was Soviet Russia fascist? Fascist doesn't mean anything. I believe so, but you'll find a bunch of scholars that say no. What does it mean? So we'll say tradition, like we can line up to the 70s if we say it's like Soviet Russia. So that's good. Anti-communist was used it was, this is very distinctly saying that you shouldn't be allowed on air if you speak ill of the president, which is that Soviet Russia, I feel like, is our best option in the time period. So it counts as tradition because it's the right time period. So we're actually safe there. It's fine. Let's look when deportations were the highest. When chart rate of US deportations. Well, these only go back to 2003. That's nothing. That only goes back to 2015. The charts don't go back far enough. This is like 1993. Yeah, I guess we can do this one. This chart goes back far enough. We finally found a chart. Okay. ICE was founded under Bush. It was. But that can't be when... What the fuck? Like, during the World... Guys, the per million persons deportations were at their highest in 2001. That doesn't... But that doesn't fit in our timeline. That can't be when tradition was. That doesn't make any sense. That's so outside the timeline. Here, we're just gonna change this. 2001. There we go. Fucking hell. Fucking shit. Where does tradition live? Clearly, if the idea of traditionalism, well, maybe it's just that if we go backwards in general, things got better, right? Maybe it's just if we go backwards in general, right? But then, fuck, abortion comes back if we go back too far. So we can't go back that far. And let's go back to the 20s. The rich were taxed less in the 20s. Fuck, they liked gay people more in the 20s. What do we do about that? Dude, I can't figure it out. I don't know when tradition lives. Clearly, all of these politics, the only thing they could have in common as conservative is tradition, because we're told it's tradition. What else between all of these ideas is in common? What else is, because it can't, because like, there's got to be something that they have in common that makes conservative beliefs. The Hays Code, that's right. Puritanical media. The Hays Code, the Hays Code is definitely, that's tradition right there. 1968, it actually fits our timeline. That's perfect. Religion's not a bad one. So, after 1968 is when tradition was. The gays went away. That's true. They did get rid of the gays. I'm running out of colors. The Hays Code is in 68, so this is, we're getting, but 68, no, this fits. So is 1968 tradition? Yeah, let's look up with Christian. Percentage Christian US chart. Okay. I've got one. I've got a really good one. Shit. Guys, we have a problem. It's supposed to be after 1964. Tradition is supposed to live after 1964, but it was at its peak in 1955. 1956, 1956. 1956 had its most Christians. How is this possible? I don't understand. I don't understand, guys. How is it possible that the most Christians were in 55 when tradition lives after 1964? Fuck. I guess put it on the chart anyways. We're figuring it out. We're figuring it out. Okay. I've got a good one after this. I think it's a good one. So Christian, we're getting closer. We'll give Christian a nice, like, fucking gold. Like, bright gold. We'll figure out where it is. Okay. So this is 1955 is when there was the most Christians. Okay, so I've got one. We want low taxes on the rich. Okay. Low taxes on the rich is an important one. USA chart tax rate on highest income level. This'll do it. This'll figure it out. No, guys, we have another problem. It's supposed to be in 64. Tradition's supposed to live around 64, 68. But look how high the taxes were in 64, 68. The taxes were so high. They were low in 13. Fuck, shit. Damn it. Fuck. When's tradition? When does it live? I can't figure it out. Clearly, if tradition is a coherent set of politics, it must be referring to something that actually shares anything in common. But so far, it does seem like absolutely all over the place. But that can't be, because I've been taught that tradition is a coherent political idea. That, like, I've been taught this makes sense, right? School said, this is what makes conservative values. And it can't be wrong, because that's illegal for it to happen. But 1913, shit. Pat Boone released the Tutti Frutti in 1956. That sounds about right. That's close. That's pretty good. All right, guys. I have another one. We don't like violent crime. We don't like violent crime. Conservatives talk about it all the time. Low crime. Low crime. Low crime makes conservatism. So we're going to look up violent crime. USA chart violent crime rate. All right, guys. This will solve it forever. Well, that only goes since 1990. That goes since 65, which is something. Is there one that goes further back? Like, Okay, estimated homicide rate. This is good. This is good. We have an estimated homicide rate at an incredibly low resolution, apparently. See, I can tell you were raised by a teacher. You say it with the exact snark of a high school gov teacher. Yeah, that's... Look, snark is essential. Why is this the lowest resolution image in the history of mankind? This is the exact chart that I need, and I have never seen a worse image. We're going to use the estimated one because the one I just saw is like unintelligible. It's so bad. Okay. We're going to use this estimated one that goes further back. In the 1900s, it stops being as estimated. All right, guys. So clearly, wherever this is at its... Fuck off. How? How is this possible? Apparently, it got... This is impossible. Guys, it got lower. It has to get higher beyond that. All right. So if we look from 2000... Violent crime rate from 2000, because it has to get higher again. Otherwise, everything I know about tradition doesn't make sense anymore. So I'm going to look at it since 2000. I'm going to and see what's up. Let's bring up another chart and take a look. Fucking guys, tradition can't be in 2023, can it? That doesn't make sense. That's not the past. Fucking hell. I feel like at some point, I'm never going to figure out what this is. So apparently in 2023, we have the traditional low violent crime rate. So vaccines are bad. When did vaccines start? The government forcing inoculations, right? When did the USA force inoculations first? Guys, we have terrible news. It's 1777 because George Washington did it to his troops. So tradition has to live some point before 1777 because that was the first forced inoculation. Shit. Fuck. I can't keep getting away with this, bud. They can't do it. They can't keep getting away with it. Ugh, 1777. So some point before 1777, maybe things were traditional back then. I mean, no, but we're talking about what conservatives push for. Because the thing is, conservatives say that their politics are tradition. So we're looking at conservative talking points. Because if tradition is going to be coherent, it all has to apply to one time, right? Otherwise, tradition isn't what conservative politics are about. Because if there's no time you can point to in the past, and their values are wishy-washy throughout history, and some of them exist sometimes and some of them don't, then saying their politics are those of tradition, instead of just tradition's an argument they use to justify their impulses, is fucking stupid. So clearly, because conservative politics aren't a fucking lie, and they're not lying to us that it's about fucking tradition, there has to be a coherent era, and these things can't possibly flop throughout history, because that would make the entire argument really fucking dumb, wouldn't it? Wouldn't the argument be dumb if all of these things conservatives push for, claiming tradition, never coexisted, that it went up and down throughout history, that history is a river that you can't wind backwards, and that humanity moves in all directions? No, they wouldn't have a philosophy that's entirely stupid. Clearly, this all has to line up, and we're insane for making a chart where things are all over the goddamn place. We're gonna do one more. No regulations? Yeah, when was the free market? When was the free market? When did the US have fewest regulations on industry? Because we know Trump's all about it. He's all about low regulations on industry. No, that can't be. That's not when tradition existed. That's not when tradition existed. No. Low regulation. We'll just do the short form. You jumped in late, didn't quite exist. Maybe tradition existed, but it can't have existed because there was other stuff we don't like yet. Oh no. That's O'Haven. Because very obviously conservatives aren't lying when they claim that tradition is the source of their logic and their politics. We're trying to figure out when tradition was, because if these things didn't all coexist, if the things that conservatives pushed for didn't coexist throughout history, it would be a lie to say they're pushing to go back towards some traditional ideal, and clearly there would be something else they value. So because all conservatives aren't lying about the fact that tradition is why they believe in this, isn't the common factor, according to the Arab private property? Not really, because it's like all over the place. It's bimodal or whatever you call it. I mean, it could be. So here's the issue. Regulations were at their lowest between 1870 and like 1905. So like in this zone. Pretty tough. That's pretty tough, guys. But the problem is the parks existed. The parks protections exist in that era too. I don't. So yep, it's tough. It's tough. So here's where I'm at, right? Here's where I'm at with this. If we look at this, if women don't have bodily autonomy, and let's go over these one at a time, actually. Maybe we're missing something else. Maybe there's something else that binds all of these politics together. Because if it was tradition, right? Which conservatives have traditional values, that's a fact, like family values. Cool, guy, that's so true. Traditional values. So you're a first-time chatter, you haven't been here the whole time. When were traditional family values established? Do you mean 1950? Because in the 50s, the idea of the nuclear family, instead of living with your extended family, was first started. So you mean the tradition of like, this is great, we needed a conservative. You can argue against me, because I've been saying that conservatives aren't liars and that there's something else to their politics, or there isn't something else to their politics, because it'd be silly for it to not be tradition. So if conservatives absolutely have traditional values, when did those traditional values exist? Like when? Because yeah, the nuclear family idea, instead of living with your extended family, started in the 50s. So is it the 50s? Because when we looked at the 50s, there was some stuff that, you know, you don't like in there. Like union memberships were higher, taxes on the rich were higher, violent crime was higher. What do you think? There was less deportation for sure. So what are the traditional values? Right? Where's tradition live? Right? You tell me. We want a version of the 1950s that never actually existed outside of television shows. That's a lot of true. Yeah. People want to live in like fucking is it the honeymooners? Is that the one? But cool, guy, you're here to tell me that you have traditional values. So we have this chart here. So tell me where tradition was. Like where is it? When was it good? What is like, because you don't want to go back too far, or everybody, because like if we go back too far, people lived in multi-generational households, right? And that's not traditional. And if you go back too far, people liked gay people more in the 50s, so that's not traditional. Um, you know, before 1964, when they could own people, I think 1964 might be a little. I think you might have put the wrong number. I think you might have put the wrong digit there. Um, yeah, the honeymooners was so popular it inspired it. The question is, when was tradition? Exactly. Like when here? Because I'm looking at the chart and it's kind of all over the place. Unions were at their lowest before 1930, right? Sorry, 1886. That's true. That's O'Haven. Tradition's supposed to be a pattern of the same culture over a long period of time, but the reason why we can't find the beginning point, because conservatives rely on what they are told the past was, which is riddled with misinformation. That's true, but it's also inconsistent. It shifts. It clearly doesn't shift in and out, because that'd be a stupid thing to base your politics off of, but it does appear to shift in and out. In fairness, you know, there's a bit, but the reality of a specific time period doesn't necessarily need to reflect. Mount Astri, here's where you're wrong. I have thought the same thing, but if your entire idea is saying my political identity is based on the idea of tradition, why that doesn't work is these don't correlate, right? They don't correlate with each other because people are like, oh, but it's just about going back in general. Okay. Back when there was more violent crime? No, I'm opposed to violent crime. Okay. Well, we should go back further to when there wasn't park protections. Okay, but when there wasn't park protections, abortion was legal and you don't like abortion. Okay, well, I don't want abortion to be legal, but there shouldn't be a civil rights act. Okay, so you want more people in unions. No, we don't want more people in unions. Like, the reason it doesn't line up is you can say generally backwards, but all of these things oscillate up and down. They are cherry picking specific things from specific time periods. Like, that's what I'm not arguing. You can't like all these things. I'm not arguing it doesn't make sense to hold each of these values together. I'm arguing that if you do so, tradition is not the basis of your politics. Because if tradition were the basis of your politics, then all of your politics could be extrapolated either from a point that you think we should go back to, or that the general direction of back will get you everything you value. But if you go back, unions go up. If you go back further to get rid of unions, you have abortion back. Like, that's my argument. That if you are to say why you have these values is tradition and not for some other reason, right? Then there should be a logic to it. So I'm going to point it out. I'm going to point it out because we do this all the time, right? We've done this before. If you've been with me before, you know what I'm about to say. But this is the part where we extrapolate to evidence. What actually unifies right-wing values? What actually is a real unifying factor? Well, let's say abortion is outlawed. Women now can be stuck with a baby, have to reproduce. They don't have bodily autonomy. Let's say we have the nuclear family. Great. We have a family based around the idea of one patriarchal figure who's in charge, who is the sole source of income for the household and has authority over it. Let's just do this. Let's say we get rid of civil rights. Okay, black people can't vote, and now politics don't need to reflect your underclass. Let's say more people are homeowners. Honestly, that one's kind of fine. Actually, I think this is just something that liberals and conservatives have in common. I think a lot of people just like this. Let's say we get rid of women's right to vote. Well, if we get rid of women's right to vote, women have less political autonomy, and voting is less or politics are less likely to go in a way that benefits women, giving men more power. Let's say we get rid of national parks. Well, now instead of all people having access to the beauty of America, the beauty of America must be owned by someone. Only the wealthy, because very quickly all of the important land will be bought and used, and the only preserved land will be personally owned. Homeowners specifically, they want me in mass suburbia. Yeah, but I think liberals want that too, honestly. Cool guy, we're getting to it. Cool guy, you stick with me, and I'm going to point out why I think you are incorrect. And if you disagree, go for it. But you'll notice something. Let's say we don't have women's studies. Well, we are no longer appreciating the specific experience of women in culture. We are saying that women don't matter. Let's say we don't have unions. Well, now the average worker has no power to negotiate with their boss. Wealthy people are given more power by getting rid of unions. We get rid of public schools. The average person is less educated, and education can be tailored to the parents' wishes, making the child more property of the child. I'm coming across aggressive? This is the part where we're aggressive. You missed the part where I was being jokingly fun. Let's say we have increased deportations. Now, people who are non-white, people who are from other countries get to be treated like an underclass, live in constant fear, will likely work for lower wages because they are afraid of attention from authorities. We don't have the Hays Code. Or we have the Hays Code, okay? So now media isn't allowed to show positive representations of gay people. We're not allowed to see gay people as anything but bad, right? Let's say people are more Christian. People are more supplicant. They are more likely to be part of a faith that explicitly tells you to honor the father of the family, to be patriarchal, to allow a man to have, that's actually really untrue, cool guys. If you look it up, crime rates are much, much higher in red states if you look at per capita. It's only when you look at total amount of crimes that they're higher in blue states and blue cities, because people actually want to fucking live in blue states and blue cities. If you look at crime per capita, crime is way the shit higher in every Republican state and city. I'm not lying. Look it up. Crime per capita matters. Crime generally, that just tells you people live there. Like, yeah, of course there's more murders in New York than Nebraska. People actually want to fucking live in New York. But yeah, his code was more about not showing religious figure bad. I thought it also did the gay thing. Am I confusing it with that other code? There's that other code. There's the, is that no, that's the, is that the comics code? There's another code that stopped you from showing gay people in a positive light. If people are more Christian, they're part of a religion that specifically tells you to honor the father of your family, give absolute authority to him. Authority, again, to the higher status person. If rich people are taxed less, the more powerful people have more power now. You are not using the money of the wealthy to benefit poor people. You are using it to basically just sit there, make rich people feel happy about their bank account. I don't know. Low violent crime. Again, I think liberals disagree with this one. I'm not gonna lie. Some conservative values are fine. Like, it's fine to want low crime and home ownership. I think that's whatever. Again, I want decommodified housing, but if you're not gonna do it, home ownership is good. Vaccines, again, this one I don't actually know when conservatives switched on this. You guys used to be pro-vaccines. I don't know what happened. Like, I don't know why you switched. This one, I don't know. Low regulations on industry, again, empowers the rich and usually leads to poor people having politicians. You don't follow politics, so I'm stressing you out a little. That's fair. I'll chill. However, did you notice common thread? That's right. You notice the thread you always notice with me because it comes down to the same bit. I'm predictable, but I'm okay with that. The thing you noticed, and help me, I'm going to Google the spelling. I'm going to spell it wrong otherwise. I just wish I could spell this fucking word because it's so important to my political thesis. Yeah, I mean, I don't know when they switched. They used to be more pro-vaccine than the left. Like, at some point they switched on that, and I don't know why. Look, it's a bad example, but it is something that the right pushes for right now, and that's fair. Republican voters will never understand what population density is. I think they can. I believe in this person. This person in chat doesn't strike me as a sycophant to Trump. I think there are conservatives who are perfectly rational people. But what I want to point out here, right? What I want to point out here is that all of these things, barring the low crime rate and home ownership, are all about hierarchy. That is what they're about. That is the commonality, right? So here's why I want to pitch. I've had the argument from friends, smart friends, people I respect a lot. And I've had the argument from my teachers, right? That conservative values, conservative politics are about tradition. But if they were about tradition, then one of two things would have to be possible. The things they are talking about would have to be unanimously more the way they want in the past. That is not true. Unions used to be stronger in some eras. Yeah, they were weaker at one point, but the era where they were weaker, a lot of the social things they pushed for weren't there. You can say that they wanted low tax on the rich. Taxes were higher on the rich in the 60s when we were seeing a lot of the laws pushed that conservatives value. So many of the things that conservative politics push for have nothing. It's not that they have nothing to do with tradition. It's that they are not unanimously more the way conservatives push for in the past. They're all over the place. Time changes constantly. Things move up all the fucking time. Things move down all the fucking time. You can't just look at the past and say, yeah, like that. I don't think conservative politics are in the slightest about tradition, because there's a ton of things that we just looked into that I would like to be more like what they were. I would like to go back to the high union rates, right? Wouldn't you? I'd like to go back to more mandatory vaccinations. Push me all the way back to abortion being legal again in the past. There are so many different things in that chart that I would prefer how they were at a certain point in the past to how they are now. High taxes on the rich. Tax them fuckers. Give me them that 40s era tax on the rich. So, like, you can say that conservative politics are about tradition. But if going back in time doesn't actually always make the things you value more the way you value, and there's no specific point in time where all of the things you like were more that way, the tradition's not actually what you're vouching for, is it? Hierarchy is what conservative politics are boiling down to. This is the motivation. Everything we talked about, barring home ownership, which I actually, if you look at the policies conservatives push, they are actually anti-home ownership. They don't want you to own your home. Home ownership goes down from conservative policies. I agree. They talk about it a lot. They don't they don't actually want you to own a home. But if you exclude home ownership, low crime rate, and vaccines, every single one of those establish hierarchy. Hierarchy of I own my child, they are an entity I control. Their education is not state determined. I choose. Yeah, Dancing Viru, I Googled it this time. I choose how my kid is trained. Hierarchy of women can't vote, the blacks can't vote. We are segregated, there are alternate classes. Hierarchy of we all worship the Heavenly Father who promotes pro-state beliefs. Um, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with the idea of there being ups and downs. Um, there being people who are wealthier and poorer. I think that's unavoidable. Some people will be better off. However, I like politics that don't exclusively benefit that. Cool guy, let's see what you're saying. You tend to be more moderate because you care about the ocean being clean and other stuff. Hell yeah, I respect that. But at the same time, you think taxes should be lower. Cool guy, allow me to pitch you an alternative. And this is not the world you live in, so I understand why you want taxes to be lower. This is what I want to pitch to everybody when they say taxes should be lower. I don't like paying my taxes either, right? I don't like paying my taxes. It feels bad. But wouldn't it be better, instead of having your taxes be low, wouldn't it be better to be proud of paying taxes? Wouldn't it be better to live in a society that treats you so well, that's built up a world so good, that like makes life so much better for you, where you can see your taxes at work? Do you know where most taxes go in the US? Private-public partnerships. That's so fucking much of where your taxes go. They genuinely go to the idea that, oh, my rich buddies can make a bunch of money if I pay to the highest bidder and give a pile of tax dollars so that public services can be handled by a private company who's charging 8 times more than it would cost to run this ourselves as the government. I'm not lying. That is most of the waste in the US government. There's a world where you could be paying your taxes and feel proud of it, right? Even their military budget doesn't need to be as big as it is. Your military hires private contractors to build shit for you and to service your vehicles. Why? Why is that not a branch of the military? Private contractors overcharge the shit out of you for that. And here's another thing. Yeah, lower taxes on the poor, I think could be fine. Why are rich people paying so little in taxes? Why is there a shell game they can pull where they're never paying taxes, where they're living off of debt by wagering debt against itself to constantly play a shell game with money until they die? Why do they never pay taxes and just get things for free by leveraging it against their net worth? That doesn't seem fucking fair. I don't think that sounds fair. Those are the politics of hierarchy. The politics of hierarchy lead to the privatization of public services, lead to this highest bidder system where we're just paying out of pocket for a company to get rich off of your tax dollars. That's hierarchy because the rich got to design those rules and the rich gain power. If you want a world where your tax dollars aren't being wasted on public-private partnership, don't be a moderate. Why is that? Because you will have either your tax dollars wasted less or frankly have to pay less in taxes if you vote for someone who's willing to punish the wealthy and if you vote for someone who's willing to end public private and just have the government do its job. Literally, what's the difference between the government doing something itself and the government paying more to have the same thing done worse in a way that makes a rich person a lot of money? That's fucking stupid. Why is that the world we goddamn live in? Like, what benefit does that give you? Is it that you can invest in them as a company for profit? Well, you're going to do a worse job at it because the Congress people who choose which companies are going to get these contracts are always, over and over again, caught investing in the companies they're about to give billions of dollars to right before they do so. So yeah, you can say, but I can use it to profit off of the stock market, but you're going to do a bad job of it because the Congress people and all their friends are getting in on the ground game and elevating the stock before the money comes in. So even that isn't actually a benefit. That's more hierarchy. That's more putting power in the hands of the powerful. Yeah, I also agree, Mountain Ash Tree. I pay more taxes in Canada than an American, and I'm fine with it because I get healthcare. Honestly, when I go to get healthcare, I'm like, fuck yeah, taxes. um, yeah, dude. Yeah, like, I'm actually perfectly fine with the US military being huge as fuck. Maybe it's all right for piracy to be dead as a concept. People act like piracy's dead because we live in the modern era. Piracy's dead because of the US Navy. If it wasn't for a Navy that big patrolling the seas endlessly, piracy would be as big as ever. Because guess what? Pirates can also buy guns. Pirates could buy drones too. But the US Navy is fucking over budget for no goddamn reason because of private public. Like, it's just dumb shit. And that's because of the politics of hierarchy. So I get being a moderate. I get wanting to pay lower taxes. But you should consider, like, what do lower taxes mean? Wouldn't you rather a world where your taxes are moderately high, a little bit uncomfortable, but things are good? Your government isn't wasting money. If you get sick, you can go to the hospital. Your roads are fucking smooth as shit. Have that good ass concrete. You got trains. The trains work and they don't crash and they're comfortable and cheap and you can ride around the country on rail. Like, isn't that a better world? I think that's a better world, man. Like, yeah, high taxes suck. You can mostly put high taxes on the rich. Even if your taxes were a little higher, wouldn't that be a good cost to be included in a country that cares about you? Imagine that. Imagine that a country where tax dollars don't exist to just be funneled to wealthy fucks who have friends in Congress. Huh? Wouldn't that be nice? Literally, that's where your tax dollars go, is friends in Congress. You know why Medicare is so expensive? Because it goes to friends of Congress. The military, friends in Congress. All that shit. All of it, the government could be doing itself. Doge failed because it turns out the waste they were trying to find didn't account for any amount of money bigger than a rounding error. I mean, absolutely. There's very little fraud and abuse in the government outside of the major fraud and abuse of public-private contracts. That's where the abuse and fraud is people knowing they're overcharging and the government knowing they're overpaying, but being fine with it because they get kickbacks. What does a congressperson care if they pocketed a pile of your fucking money? They don't give a shit. And now, you don't want to pay higher taxes? Guess what a tariff is? That's a tax on everything you buy, every day, everything you buy. Why would the rich like it? Because they buy less shit than you. They spend less of their money on surviving and more of it on stocks and property, things that tariffs are going to affect less. So, yeah, tariffs are a tax on the poor specifically. So that's something to think about. Yeah, they're just a like preemptive sales tax. I was gonna say delayed, but they're preemptive. All right, we've talked about it enough. I'm gonna hop out. We're not doing the last topic because these took longer than expected. Thanks for being here. Hey, cool kid. Sorry if I came across as aggro. I don't like people ruining the world. I want life to be better for you. If you're still here, if my energy didn't put you off, I want you to live in a better world. That's why I care about this shit. That's why I get heated. Because as long as we keep allowing politics to be about how do we make those who have everything have more, you're going to have a worse fucking life. No matter how much taxes you're paying, you are going to have a worse life if every system exists not to benefit you, but to benefit some wealthy fuck who has a friend in Congress. That's why I'm heated. Because I actually want people to have a good world. I want the world to be nice, happy, to fucking frolic around in a field. I want fields to still exist. That'd be great. And like you, I want a clean ocean. I think that's a good motivation. All right, team. My energy withers. I wilt. I die. If someone can vote morally, she would expect to be better political awareness. I get it. It's true that Alberta got the idea separate from Canada because they pay more taxes. Yes and no. Alberta wanting to separate the dumbest shit in the world. Yeah, they pay a little bit more because they're making a lot of money per capita because of the oil fields. However, the idea that that's worth separating is incredibly dumb because the oil market is about to collapse and they will become a third world fucking nation. Here, like, you know what, cool guys? I respect your attitude. I'm sorry. This is the energy I put out there. Live your life well. Also, liberals also value family. Like, I haven't met a liberal who doesn't value family. The only time they don't is when their family are assholes to them. Like, I know conservatives pitch like we like family values, but I have to be real. Vast majority of the time that a conservative says they value family values, they mean I don't like gay people. I'm not joking. Fucking push them on what that means, and they'll be like, well, the liberals are ruining family. Like, okay, my liberal family hangs out together and have dinner, so, like, how are we ruining it? And, like, if you push far enough, usually what a conservative means if they say, well, they don't value family values, is they mean we don't, that there's gay people. That's it. That's literally most of the time what it means. Like, the only time I know liberals who don't value family, we're fucking humans. We all value family. The only time is when their family are dicks to them. And, like, if what a conservative means is I should be allowed to be a dick to my kid and they still like me, fuck that noise. Be good, man. Their toxic views destroyed your desire to spend time with your family. That sucks, man. Also, like, no, you're not saying it's dumb or not. You're saying it's true. They want to separate. A lot of them want to separate. A lot of them don't. What I wanted to explain though, quick, because this is actually important, is Alberta took all of the money out of their sovereign trust fund they've been putting forever, and they've invested singularly in the oil fields. What that means is when the oil market collapses, they will die. Also, every time oil prices drop, it is so expensive to produce oil from tar sands that every time oil sands drop, our tax dollars from the rest of Canada need to funnel into Alberta to stop them from going bankrupt, because it literally costs more to produce than it does to sell. So, if oil prices drop at all and Alberta is separate from Canada, they will literally be a third world country in a week. You'll give me credit where credit is due to your informed and understanding. Look, I'm not the smartest guy, but I am pretty well informed. Get your opinion from lots of people. I think value my opinion because I do think I'm smart. But make sure you check in with other sources, see what other people say. But when you do, I want you to keep in mind this idea that when conservatives are arguing that they value tradition, think about what the actual incentives behind what's being pushed for are. Because I guarantee you, 9 out of 10 times that conservatives are telling you about their politics, it will be pro-hierarchy, not pro-tradition. Like, just think about this as a lens. Think about this as a way to see the world, instead of thinking of this as, like, absolute truth. Because I don't think you should listen to any one person and consider it absolute truth. That's my take. That's my take. All right, now maybe we should raid. Queers done ruin the sanctity of marriage. Conservative has been married 6 times, 5 times. You know. Oh, there's a Ukrainian guy streaming politics. I want to send you guys to an art stream or a politics stream. I'm sending you to Yesakaka. Why? I don't know. Hollow Knight's cute. I'm picking a random streamer. I gotta eat my dinner. I gotta rest. I'm gonna do some work tonight. Oh, I forgot to say, the video essay is out soon. I'm gonna do a big announcement tomorrow. Oh, I have to read Berserk. That's what I have to do. Glad I remembered. Video essay is gonna be out probably next week. I'm so excited. The reason no videos have been coming out is Lav's been working so hard on it. Dude, I'm so hyped. All right, everybody. Till next time, it's been lovely talking to you. Bye. And lastly, VOD viewers, you're beautiful.